Can you tell? We do drugs here. He can tell. Look at him. We do drugs? Well, hello everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today is the book review for Ellen Hopkins' Crank. We are continuing with the ALA books, this time from 2022, because we have finished everything that was on 2021's list. Can I get some hands in the air? We've only got 4 more books to go, and then we are done with everything on the top lists for the ALA's 2021 and 2022 list. We will see if we feel like doing 2020 shortly after this, eventually at some point. I got some books to read that are actually on my TBR, and I gotta go see if they are good or not good. Gotta actually read some good Western after reading, Lucky Red, and prepare for writing my own Western with Monty, but that is what it is. Anyway, we are here reading Crank, which was a number 10 tie on the list for 2022, tied with A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas and Earl and Me and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews. That book was also on 2021, so we've already got a review for that. Sarah J. Maas is coming soon because it's a long one. Freaking it! You get a long review when it's a 600-page book. Let me tell you. I did not want to be reading Sarah J. Maas for this. Let me tell you what, at least will Colleen Hoover be on 2023? That is the real question. Then we will get the trifecta. But before we get started, number 1, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number 2, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number 1 way to be featured is through Lamoy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story or a fragment using the prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we bask in each other's brilliance and your guys' brilliance, because this is a creative community. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out, if you submit your first chapter and your cover, they will be read here on the channel to hopefully help more readers find your work. And the third thing is if you would like to check out any of my books for judgment, for enjoyment, for kindling. Should we start calling when you read on a Kindle, kindling? If you would like to check out any of those, then the links are down in the description below. You can get them anywhere you get your books from, including the library if you just, request it. Then you can share the love or the hate, or, send it to somebody that you don't like if you don't like it, and then we can all suffer together. Anyway, with that said, let's jump into this. So Crank made the 2022 list with 48 challenges and was allegedly challenged for drug use and claimed sexual explicitness. The author's note at the beginning of this book says that it's a book written by a mother inspired by her daughter's life and addiction. So I think that it might end up landing in PSA range. Plot twist, it somewhat does, but we'll see as we go through it. And as personal as the story is, it already has the PSA vibes because of the author's note. Now, this book is also an epic told in poetry. It is 3 different books. I'm only going to be reading Crank and not the other 2 because the other 2 are not on the list. ALA needs to put the other 2 on the list if it wants me to continue this series. And the 3 parts together equal up more than 1,000 pages. So that's why I call it a poetry epic. It is also free-form poetry, so don't actually expect poetry. It's kind of just... The novel starts out with a speaker addressing the reader, more or less, saying that you're about to hear the story of how I got into a bad situation and where I am by looking in the mirror and hating what I saw. She describes herself as growing up alone because her parents, brother, and sister were all too tied up in themselves to notice what she needed, so she only had herself. And she wasn't the greatest at most things, but she liked who she was, and she was better at some things than people think. Her name, she introduces herself as Bree, but we will later learn that the speaker's name is actually Christina, and Bree was the alter ego that she made up as she started doing drugs and getting into that culture. Now, as we get started, I will be the first to say that I'm not much of a poetry person, so I couldn't tell you what the poetry merits are on this, but the fact that it is freeform kind of makes it just feel like I needed to make my PSA stand out more, so I'm going to go into poetry, but it really read like a plot, like a story outline, as opposed to a developed story, and there wasn't a lot of character development or emotion in it, and that's kind of what I feel like poetry is supposed to be. But again, I'm not a poet, so it really just read like a niche. And then on top of that, when I'm reading poetry, then all I could see is kind of the ridiculousness of the way that it is written. Like, quote, on Bree, I suppose she's always been there, vague as a soft copper pulse of moonlight through blossoming seacoast fog. I wonder when I first noticed her, slipping in and out of my pores, hide-and-seek spider and fieldstone red-bellied phantom. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm a little small brain, okay? Christina then mentions it started after a court-ordered visit with her father. She asks the listener if they want to hear the story of her mom's first marriage, then gets into it. Her dad was a deadbeat with no communication toward her. The speaker says, quote, "My mom, warrior goddess, threw down the gauntlet when he phoned." I'm reading this going. It was written by the chick's mom about her daughter. You're getting into really cringy territory, like right off the start, when you write about your fictitious daughter's perspective and call yourself a warrior goddess. In the land of self-inserts? So now Christina is going to her dad's house, despite mom not wanting her to have to go. The speaker is 6 years old. She says things would never be the same from that moment on. Her mother got a new man named Scott. Christina arrives at her dad's house and he's smelly and gross. It's been 8 years since that phone call. So dad's catching up now. Christina's sister has come out as gay, says that mom's gifted and a writer, and they go home to dad's house, which is let down because he lives in a dump. Also kind of awkward to be writing about your fictitious daughter's perspective and insulting your ex-husband, but we'll just leave that analysis there. I get that we are writing some prescriptive fiction right now, I think. Christina doesn't want to go out for the night with her dad, so she's gonna stay home. The neighbor's screaming comes through the walls, and it reminds Christina of her parents fighting. Her dad swearing, her mom saying that he'll never see the kids again, and Christina resents her mom for that because her dad might have been bad, but he was still her dad, and generally, girls still want their dads most of the time. She's mad at her mom still and irritated by her mom's frustration at the stagnation of her career, while she can forgive her dad for anything as long as she can be his little princess. Her dad also liked drugs more than the family, and she was okay with that. Time skip, the TV is not working, so Christina goes and watches a boy flirt with a girl outside next door. The girl says no, she doesn't want to go and do some hooky, but is eventually being talked into it and giving in when her mother comes out and calls her, so she promises to do things with him later and then leaves. Then Christina's thinking about how she's never been with a boy like that and didn't want to be with a boy like that and didn't want a boy to touch her. Why should she? She didn't want a boyfriend or for hands to go in places. Then the boy hears Christina and comes over to greet her, asking for her name. She gives the name Bree and he gives the name Buddy. Christina asks what his real name is and he says Adam. Christina likes that and Adam likes her. His girlfriend comes back out and chases Christina away back into her house. Christina then goes to bed. She dreams of being in a meadow, hearing some people having sex. She follows the sound and then she is under a man. She wakes up. She's just hanging out with her dad now, going bowling, talking about this and that. Her dad never really dated anyone serious since her mom and wants someone to take care of him. If she doesn't cook, he's not interested. People hang out at the bowling alley and flirt and get high. Christina's dad likes drugs. It keeps him from feeling hunger and gives him a good high. Her dad then stays home, skipping work, recovering from the high. Christina wonders if her dad ever works because she just sees him at home or getting high all the time. She goes to the corner store for a pop where she runs into Adam. He buys it for her and walks her home, invites her into his house because his mom is gone, and you know what absent mommy means. Yeah, they kiss. She absolutely is taken by him, and he doesn't expect a thing from her or judge her. They start seeing each other secretly, getting wild, and being with each other. She goes to the bowling alley with her dad and meets Adam and goes to the back room to do coke with him, and they make out. Yes, that did happen very quickly. Pretty much like kissing the boy is the gateway drug to cocaine. I don't make up the rules. That's just how it is. Her dad comes back looking for her and finds her with Adam, and they do another line to talk about trying to get someone's boss to do drugs so that they can have sex. Christina's off by herself and goes running out of the room and out of the bowling alley and down the street, and she is grabbed by a couple of random guys who are like, "Hey baby, can you help me with something?" She's about to get gang raped by all of them, by the way, when Adam reappears and interrupts them. The guys know him, so they stop. He takes her home and they stay up most of the night talking until she passes out, and her dad comes home and tells Adam to get the frick out. Christina's like, "Where were you when I needed you?" and resents her dad for having no idea what happened to her that night. She thinks about how she is in love, cleans the house, writes a letter to her sister, apologizes for falling in love with a man, drinks a beer because she's hungry but her stomach's like meh from the drugs, and when that stays down, she drinks a couple more beers. She then falls asleep watching Jerry Springer. Waking up again to the sound of pounding on the door, Adam's in saying, saying hang on. Quote, my mouth tasted like a dead speed, dying beer, and foreboding. There was an accident. Christina finally comes to, and Adam explains how the girl named Guinevere, who he was flirting with initially, had gotten mad at him for hanging out with Christina and got jealous and wanted to make Adam forget Christina. When he wouldn't drop it, the girl then tried to kill herself in front of him. Christina comforts Adam and blames herself for the girl's suicide. She loves Adam. Adam loves her. He also loved that girl first, and he asks Christina to go to the hospital with him to go and see Guinevere. Christina agrees, though she is angry at Adam for loving that other girl at all. Shame on you for ever having a love life. And when they get to the hospital, they lie about being related to Guinevere so that they are allowed to go and see her, since family is only being admitted to go and see her. Christina then goes home, having not paid any attention to Guinevere. Adam drops her off. Her dad asks how Gwen is, and Christina doesn't know because she wasn't paying attention. They go out for some McDonald's because there's no food in the house, and her dad is not good at talking. Nothing more than small talk. Christina's pretty sure that her dad will never be good at freaking anything. Her dad asks her if she's had sex with Adam, and Christina's like, that's the only thing that dad cares to know. Not if I've done drugs, but if I've had sex in his house. It's voyeuristic. Adam comes over, and the two of them do drugs together, and then they're getting hot and heavy while she's changing clothes. They're going to have sex when Christina discovers that she's on her period, so she tells him no. But he is totally happy with continuing going. She just doesn't want to. She then later regrets not losing her virginity to him that night. Time is moving on. Guinevere is going to survive, they say, though nobody knows how much brain damage she might have from the suicide attempt. It's still in question. Christina's going home to her mother now, and Adam asks if he can come over. Christina begs him to take her virginity that night before she goes, and he does while they're high. Then she's got a tattoo of a heart for Adam, and she gets on the plane, super high out of her mind, but she wanted it, so there she goes. She gets home. People are waiting for her on the other side of the gate. She's kind of insulting her family when she gets home and sees them for the first time, glad that she doesn't have Jake's freckles. Also, he's really sweaty. Her sister Leia looks like Britney Spears, and she's like, how does a lesbian look like Britney Spears? Scott looks stressed out and tired, and Mom, it's at this point that I noticed that the narrator compliments her mom every single time she sees her. Quote, Mom, somehow prettier with laugh lines. Would I be able to say the same? Visible from here. Would I ever even be that beautiful? And a smile that could light a starless night. Christina. Ellen, this is you. You're talking about yourself, Ellen. Anyway, they all go to eat at a buffet, list all of the food for extra content of the book. I feel like listing food is kind of the poor man's way of making sure you got word count in. Like, not that there's no value in describing food, but at this point, I'm coming off of having read Lucky Red, and there were huge blurbs for the food, and then you've got this, and it's like, I didn't need to know everything on the buffet list menu. But okay. So they get home, Leah comes in and sees Kristen and sees her tattoo, and it looks infected. Christina sort of tells her sister about the man back from where she came from, and she's also thinking about where she can get drugs. She hears she's gotten some phone calls while she was out. One of them was from Adam, so she goes and tries to call him back, first forgetting the area code and getting some creep who doesn't know who Adam is but will pretend to be him if he can talk dirty to Christina. Bree is also into it, while Christina is like, nah. She then calls Adam's number correctly this time, and Guinevere has opened her eyes, so we've got an update there. She also talks to Adam's mom, who intimates that Adam's dad was a druggie and that she hopes that Adam will make better choices than his father. Then she's talking to her friend Sarah about the trip and wondering what all she could actually say about it, since it was a lot of drugs, it was a lot of getting together with Adam, it was a lot of weirdo. And then Sarah asks Christina if she wants to go camping with her family. Christina's like, I'll think about it, but she really doesn't want to go. She wants to find out where to get drugs in Reno. While Christina likes her friend Sarah, her other personality, Bree, doesn't. Now Christina goes to pig out on food. Her mom comes home from shopping, bringing Christina a new bikini. Christina rejects the bikini because it'll show her tattoo that she's trying to hide. Now she's talking about the annual family picnic that's at Scott's company. It's a lot of fun to go to, and it's made up of only people who know each other, and food in an amusement park with the rides all rented out for the company. But Christina's like, it doesn't feel inviting. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be there. I just want to do drugs. And she's like, everything is as it should be. Everything except for me. I shouldn't be here. And she doesn't want to go, but she feels like she has to go for her family, or they'll think that something is up with her. So she tries on the bikini and insults her looks because she thinks that her body is trying to be womanly, but it's not really womanly enough, and the tattoo is showing, so she needs to figure something out. She gets a call from Adam saying that Guinevere is coming home, and since they're so far away, they should be allowed to see other people. Christina's heart is broken. Quote, "My face flushed, tears poked my eyes, scar tissue twisted my heart, wrapping itself around arteries, closed tight around my jugular. I coughed pain. I never went to Albuquerque expecting to find love, though it had found me there, followed me home. I never came home expecting to lose love in the space of one brief telephone call. Is it always so short-lived?" Her mom comes in and says that she wants to hear about the trip, so she sits down and tells her about the trip, leaving everything about Adam out and everything about the drugs out. Later, Lee comes in and talks to Christina about Adam, asking Christina about her boyfriend and tells her about her own girlfriend in order to get Christina to open up. Christina's surprised that lesbians can be cheerleaders and not just masculine people named Bobby. So then she's going to the family event thing with Scott and her family, but she mentions a friend really briefly, and that friend has come out as gay and people are dicks to him. And all of this is said for no reason. Quote, "While waiting in line, we ran into Trent, another longtime friend, who on his 16th birthday made a huge mistake of climbing out of the closet and waving a big hello. Of course, I was good with it. We were best buds, no matter what, and of course, there was Leah's factor. But others in our school were not quite so open-minded. Since he outed, Trent had been teased, humiliated, beaten, even semi-tortured by some pickup truck cowboys who didn't have a clue about the real meaning of masculinity. So there I was at Wild Waters, trying to look extremely cool at the coolest place in town with chatty Sarah Baker and Trent the gay guy Rosalie. Turned into an interesting day." That's literally really the only time that it's mentioned, and Trent is not important to the story, so I don't even know why this is here. She embraces her inner Brie and hits on some hotties there and scores a date with said hotties. Mom sees the tattoo on Christina and grounds her. At the end of summer, Mom gives Christina a credit card to go shopping with as a way of apologizing for grounding her for the summer and ruining her entire summer. She goes to the mall and does some panty shopping where she sees cheerleaders, Trent, and Chase Wagner. She admires how they're all skinny and is sure that they're being stimulated with something in order to keep skinny. Chase approaches and asks to see Christina's panties. She says, "Do you want to see the old ones or the new ones?" He says, "If you want to make your mom real mad, get a piercing." And Christina looks over Trent, seeking the piercing out, but she doesn't find one, then imagines, "Oh, it can only be in one place if I can't see it." He tries to get her to have sex with him in his truck. When she says no, he offers her drugs, and then she changes her mind. She blames Bree for that. She's greeted by another boy, Brandon, before she leaves. That guy wants time with her too, and Christina's like, "So many people want me now." Christina lets him walk her outside because he's the type that her mother would approve of. Mom asks about Brandon, and then back at the house, Christina gets out of eating by saying that she ate at the mall. She's got a letter from Adam apologizing for the phone call and telling her to stay smart. She keeps referencing the monster inside of her. That monster is the drug monster. It feels too self-aware as a drug habit and the character trying to lose herself for it to be saying this, which is where it really feels like the author is more leaning into the book. She goes to her room and she gets a call from Chase. After talking to him for a bit, she pulls out her journal to write, quote, "The monster and I had a lot to say." As Mom's seeing Lee to the airport, Christina makes up reasons for why she can't go so that she can call Chase to hook up and wonders where she fits in now that her girlhood is gone. She's wild, and y'all, she's getting crazy, sneaking out at night, almost gets taken by a boy until she says that she's a virgin so that he'll have to wait so that he can take her virginity later. We obviously know that she's not a virgin. Goes home, has the munchies, passes out. Mom wakes her up and is worried because she's kind of acting crazy. The two of them get into a fight because Mom says to come to dinner and Christina says, "No, fuck you." Mom slaps her and then they both apologize and act like nothing happened. Christina says, "Screw you." Mom slaps her and then they both apologize and act like nothing happened. She talks to Adam a bit. He mentions a girl named Gazelle, and that's Christina's dad is dating a new woman, and didn't mention Christina to that woman at all. Adam says that he loves Christina, but also is going to try his luck with his new chick because why not? She's not there and he needs some attention. Christina sets up a date to go out with a Brandon, and they lie about where they are going. He's going to take her virginity, or so he says. They get to the spot and get drinking and doing drugs, and clothes start coming off, and Christina's like, "Wait, stop," and Brandon won't stop, calls Christina a tease, and then keeps going. Quote, Still, as I opened my mouth, his hand slapped down over it. Those sublime muscles hardened. Just relax, you'll love it. My brand new Victoria's Secrets shredded, and I felt the worst of Brandon's paws, savoring my terror. They'll all love it. Had he done it in a different way, I might have responded with excitement. Instead, I froze as he pushed inside. There it is. Oh God, there it goes. It went, all right. With an audible tear, pain mushroomed into agony, and all I could do was go stiff. You weren't lying, you bitch. I laid there, sobbing as he worked and sweated over me, stoked the monster. It took him a long time to finish. Give me a line, I'll give you an encore. He pulled away, sticky and bloody, throbbing inside and out. I still didn't move, didn't dare look him in the eye. What the hell is the matter, Bree? I stared up at the clouds, gathering into gloom, shrouding the moon. My name is Christina. She's going to plan some revenge against him. Brandon drives her home. Quote, not a blink of remorse. Brandon didn't say a word most of the way home. He strove slowly, just under the limit. I watched him out of the corner of my eye. He didn't look so perfect anymore. His nose had a bump and his eyebrows almost joined. And of course, I knew what he was made of. Finally, he found a few words. His thank you for the gift that he had stolen, the one that I should have given and never could again. I will remember them forever. If I'd have known you just lay there, I wouldn't have. If I'd have known you would have just laid there, I wouldn't have bothered. So part of me at this point is confused as to whether she's given her virginity or not, because she's talked a couple of times about having slept with people, but then there's this, and like I said, with poetry, it's kind of questionable because it's not totally direct, but then this also isn't like normal poetry either. Now she is hating herself and hating Brandon, which reasonable, all things considered. Quote, have you ever had so many thoughts churning inside of you that you didn't dare let them escape in case they blew you wide open? Have you ever been so angry that you couldn't look in the mirror for fear of finding the face of evil glaring back at you? I stare at Brandon, trying to find some words, any words to express the terror of those minutes, the horror of his violation, the humiliation of his benediction, but my mouth closed up tight around the nuclear force building inside, thought after thought churning, the evil in my core threatening to eviscerate me. Would you think it a mercy killing? She gets home, wants to get in the shower, but doesn't want it to be too obvious what happened, but she also wants to clean herself, so she gets into the hot tub instead and uses that as a way to clean herself. She goes upstairs and writes a letter to Adam, telling him Gazelle probably gets high. Her parents must have been on something when they named her. She personally has 2 boyfriends now, and one of them just raped her. She says, oops, I'm sounding awfully bitter. Goodbye. I'm gonna go cry now. And so then that's what she do. Christina gets out of going to her brother's ball game, calls Chase over. Chase sees through her lies, asks her what's wrong, and she spills everything, and he is angry at Brandon, which also reasonable. Christina asks Chase to have sex with her because she wants to know what it's like when both people want it, and he says that he will have sex with her, but just not today because she's not ready for it. She hasn't processed what's happened to her, and he doesn't want to take advantage of her. And now she's thinking about that, as well as thinking about drugs. She goes to Trent's house. He's not there. She's talking to Robin instead. Robin is a cheerleader. She suggests that they smoke the crack that Christina has bought. They go to the bedroom and do just that. The high is better than before, but makes her react more to everything. At home, Scott talks to Christina about drugs, but Christina talks her way out of being suspicious, and now she is hooking up with Robin at school to get high. The family goes to the air show, and Christina asks if she can go with Robin. Her mom says yes because she's excited to see Christina actually participating. Christina rides with Robin, and they get high on the way there. They're dressed scantily and getting eyeballed by the guys, and Robin suggests that they should make out to get more attention. Christina eventually agrees, and they get whistled at for making out. Now they join her family at the air show. Mom is then flirting with some of Scott's coworkers who are sitting there with them. Christina and Robin go away to do some more drugs and talk, and Robin talks about being raped to get drugs, and it's like, whatever, because that's just like part of the thing. Now moving on, Christina is falling away from her life, her friends, connections, relationships as she gets more and more into drugs. It's her birthday, and she just got a special necklace from her grandma that grandma hopes she passes down in her family. I feel like this necklace is going to be pawned off at some point in this book series for her to get drugs, but it doesn't happen in this book, so there's at least that. Her mom gave her a pair of diamond earrings, and mom says that she feels like she has lost her daughter, but that just comes with the territory of growing up. Because Christina's about to go and meet with Chase and do some things, the bad side of Christina wins and yells at her mom that it's her fault that she is now irresponsible and doing the things that she's doing. Then she leaves to meet Chase. They go to his house, do have sex together, and the party shoots off after that with more drugs. Her birthday gets going on around her, and some of the others go into a back room, cut their wrists, and drink each other's blood because hashtag so many drugs. She stays out all night and then comes in late. Her parents are suspicious of her, but agree to check her report cards and see how she's doing before making any judgments about her. And if her report cards are fine, then she is free to go. And Christina is like, I'm screwed. She's driving late at night when a cop pulls her over and tells her that it's after curfew. Christina says that her parents are out of town, and the cop is like, okay, looks like you're coming in with me. What's your name? She says Bree Wagner. At the station, she calls Chase and explains the situation as if she's talking to him as a brother and sister. He catches on to what she's doing and then acts the part. Despite all of this, though, the only people who can come and get her out of juvie are her parents, so her parents had to be called to pick her up. She gets community service, and she is also assigned to write her grandma, connect with her friends again, and get away from the drug life, get on the pill, so she doesn't get pregnant, etc. For a little while, she's doing what's expected of her, trying to please her parents, but on Wednesday, she's hungry for speed and is looking for it. Found some cartels and traffickers and got some. Because we're speed running, becoming a drug mule. She also finds out that she's pregnant with Brandon's baby from when he raped her. Now, she wants to go and get an abortion, but she doesn't have the money for it. So she eventually goes and tells Brandon that she is pregnant with his baby and she wants him to pay for it. Meanwhile, Chase is also off at college and having a great time at college, but he also says that he will come back and he will be the father to her baby if she is going to keep the baby. She goes after Chase until he agrees to pay for the abortion, and so then she's at the clinic getting ready to get the abortion when she determines that she actually doesn't want an abortion. She feels the heartbeat or something in her tells her not to get an abortion, so she decides to keep the baby, and she's going to raise the baby. She tells that to Chase, and he is still going to be the father of that child if she wants him to be the father of that child. Then we just kind of get the speed run of the rest of this novel, which goes, quote, I won't bore you with all the tedious details of the next 7 months, the day-to-day grind, belly burgeoning around my life growing inside of me. Instead, I offer a few highlights, the top 10 reasons my pregnancy wasn't so awful, followed by the top 10 countdowns of lowlights. I know that's not a word. Consider it poetic license. Highs, 10. Feeling my baby move at 16 weeks exactly, knowing that it wasn't gas but something, someone incredibly, remarkably alive. 9. Calling dad and getting Linda Sue, asking her to define Hummer before imparting the fabulous news that her boyfriend was becoming a grandpa. 8. My ultrasound, seeing a heart beating strong inside of me, having my doctor inform me of my baby was all in one piece and then suggest that I shop blue. 7. School counselors, Mrs. Green arranging a home study program to let me graduate right on schedule 6 days before I gave birth. 6. Calling grandma, expecting a lecture and getting one about how every baby, regardless of circumstances, is an angel on a special mission. 5. Scott losing his anger long enough to teach me to drive, getting my driver's license when grandma left me are obnoxious but mint 75 LTD. 4. Jake sharing the internet research on fetal development. Did you know that a fertilized egg 36 hours old is the size of a pinhead? 3. Sorting through 35,000 names in a dummy's guide to naming your baby, opting on a strong masculine moniker, Hunter Seth. 2. Epidurals. I meant to do LeMays, really I did, but I managed to miss most of the classes. Here's to labor without unimaginable pain. And number 1, the best thing about those 7 months, holding my baby for the first time, knowing just how to do it, thinking his red, scrunched up face was really quite handsome, unwrapping the blanket to count fingers, eyes, ears, and toes, finding all 24 precisely where they ought to be, crying because suddenly for the first time in a very long time, everything felt right. Lows, 10. Morning sickness, puking my guts out as soon as I lifted my head from the pillow each and every day for weeks and weeks. 9. Listening to Mom and Scott argue about me, about the baby, about the odds of it being some sort of freak. 8. Trying to quit tobacco after learning how every puff made my baby's heart stop beating. How could I be so hooked? 7. Going to school before my condition became obvious, an outsider, knowing my old friends and I had lost all common grounds. 6. Boredom, the succession of little-to-do days stretching longer and longer toward the longest day of the year. 5. Long letters from Chase. USC was great, the football team was great, Los Angeles was great, great enough to call it home. 4. My dad's silence. He did call once to confirm Linda Sue's tale. Then not a word, as if not talking about it could make the problem disappear. 3. Losing a grandma just when I'd found her again. A waterfall of flowers brightened her funeral, but they couldn't disguise the stench of death. 2. My water breaking, mid-Walmart, contractions, uterine lightning bolts striking immediately and not letting up for 18 hours. And number 1, the worst thing about the 7 months, my steady, needful, forever relationship with the monster. Learning that addiction is more than a buzzword, discovering how much it applied to my me-first psyche, struggling not to give in to the inner voices much stronger than my own, winning most of the time, gritting my teeth and just saying no, losing in those moments when the world I'd created for myself closed in around me. Happy endings. I'd like to give you one, but I'm not really sure how this story ends myself. Being a mother is hard, a lot harder than I imagined. My baby boy is beautiful. I sense an old soul within him, but he cries a lot, and he doesn't really sleep like a newborn should. No lectures, okay? I accept my part. I watch my mom with my son, loving him as she must have loved me. She's patient when he cries. She paces him to sleep. I wish that I could be like that, but I'm only 17. I feel like life is passing me by as I stand here on the deck listening to him fuss inside. Sometimes I want to curl up into a ball and roll away. Sometimes I just want to die, and I only know one thing that can make me laugh again. Crank is more than a drug. It's a way of life. You can turn your back, but you can never really walk away. The monster will forever speak to me, and today it's calling me out the door. And that is where Crank ends, which is going to lead into the second book in the series, which I think is Glass. But some of the things with this book is like, it doesn't really feel like it devotes to being in the character of Christina in the midst of her addiction, because it's so busy wanting to make the statements against drugs and like how good that her mom was taking care of her. Like it reads like it was written by a mother talking to or about her daughter. And so it doesn't really put you in the mindset of somebody in that desperation. And then because of the way that it's actually poetry, which I don't really think that it's poetry, but, you know, if you've read it, let me know what you think. I'm just reading it from my plebeian POV. It really just reads more like an outline, so there's not emotional depth to it. But again, that could just be because I don't get anything out of poetry most of the time, and that's nothing on poets, but then it just makes it difficult for me to actually be invested because it just feels like it's a skimpy story. I also didn't really understand why Christina even started drugs, and that partially might be because I don't know if the author spent enough time to really understand what would make somebody do drugs and just understood that her daughter did do drugs, or if she just didn't want to write the character feeling justified in doing drugs, because then it could seem like she was condoning it. But if you're going to write a story about somebody falling into a drug habit and just how easy it is to be tricked into doing drugs, then you have to believe in the circumstances that caused the character to fall into doing drugs. And I don't think that that was really here in a developed manner to help people understand how this random high school girl who was on the straight and narrow and doing just fine suddenly got into this drug addiction. I think that there is a valuable story here, but this book didn't develop it, at least not for me, in order to get something meaningful out of this. So with that said, the author didn't really spend enough time getting me invested in the story or the characters. It went 0 to a million immediately. We also immediately got pregnant. It also just like, again, it felt like summaries of scenes. And finally, hot take, and again, plebeian perspective here, so feel free to send all of the hate. But free verse doesn't feel like poetry to me. It looks like a lazy man's attempt at fiction while calling it poetry to try and confuse people so that we don't mention anything and we can just speculate about being too stupid to understand it. But free verse doesn't really do anything that at least if this is what free verse is, I didn't see anything in this that made me think poetry. Maybe people have a misunderstanding of what free verse is, and so they use it in different ways so it doesn't look like poetry. But let me know what you think down in the comments below, because like I said, this is not at all. This is so far out of like what I typically read or even am able to really appreciate. But clearly people appreciate this book to different extents. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. With that said, this was one of the last 4 books that we have for the ALA. Oh my gosh, we are almost done. Can you believe it? It has been a journey. This is only the books from the last 2 years, my guys. It's... yeah. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?